he didn't have any inhibitions to express his views, and he had all the things to criticize and to critique the Western style of capitalism and all the greed that was coming to India, and he probably foresaw what India is going to do after 50, 60 years, and today, unfortunately, many of the big cities in India are probably forgetting the message of Gandhi, and they are turning away from all these great teachings. But then there are as I said, there's a big list, a big set of people who are also criticizing all the contemporary development going on in India. So there is this very healthy tension, very healthy tussle going on in India to continue on Gandhi's path or to become another mini America of wastage and big cars and big roads and whatnot. So there is this, I think it's still an open question what will happen after 10 years. So we'll have to wait and watch what exactly goes on in that part of the world.
That's interesting, and that responds directly to a question that had been sent in, which one of our participants was wondering about your thoughts about the continuing legacy of Gandhi in the midst of India as India grows and develops, and you've just answered that very eloquently. So that's wonderful. Tell us now. Obviously, the phrase "tree hugger" is one that is a familiar one in the United States, but it's not necessarily one that people understand in terms of its origins. And this is a community and a concept that you've studied in depth. So tell us about the Bishnoi.
Yeah, it's so funny. Whenever I mention this word "tree huggers," and I say when I explain about Bishnois in my class when I teach here, that the Bishnois were the first tree huggers of the world, everybody starts laughing. I don't know why. So it seems like tree huggers or tree hugging has become kind of a joke in this country, or I don't know why they start.
You know, I think it's seen as an example of environmental extremism, and I think it's also because culture in the United States has tended over time in many ways to draw a very firm line between the human world and the beyond human community of life. The idea of expressing passion or love towards a tree is really seen as odd, I think, by many people. So I think that's, and it's become sort of a symbol within culture wars within the United States between more liberal and more conservative camps who but yes, you're right. But I think it's more than anything else. I think it's become used as a code word to describe environmental extremism or perceived environmental extremism.
Yeah, which is so different from the Indian scene. Now, for thousands and thousands of years, millions and millions of women have been hugging their trees, maybe literally hugging also for many, many thousands of years. And even today, even in big cities, there is another scholar of Hinduism and ecology, Professor David Haberman. He teaches at Indiana University, and he is writing his new book on this very concept of tree hugging and tree worship in big cities like Varanasi and Allahabad and Delhi, where in the middle of the cities, in the middle of the traffic, big roads and very, very crowded streets and roads, in the middle of the roads there are these people trees, these banyan trees, where even in the busy life of the cities of India, people would go, and women especially would go and do all kinds of rituals and all kinds of their expression for fertility, all kinds of rituals for different kinds of benefits that they seek. They all go and seek the blessings from the trees. So even in modern 21st century consumerist India that it is becoming, even now tree hugging and tree loving and tree revering, tree worshipping is so commonplace. But okay, going back to my own research now, Bishnoi literally means Bish and Noi, which means 20 and 9. So Bishnois, they live by 29 rules that their founding gurus in 15th century, Guru Jambheshwar in Rajasthan, in western part of India, which is the desert state, he laid down these 29 rules to live by. And Bishnois have continued to live for the last 500 years to live by these 29 rules. Of course, there have been some I guess, not so strict following of the rules, but for the most part, they have taken care of their trees, their animals, the birds living in their area. It's a desert area, so they have really been very, very careful in the way they have interacted with the natural surroundings in their state of Rajasthan. So the second image that you see here, this is an image of a woman called Amrita Devi, and she literally hugged the sacred tree called Khejarli in 1763, and then she hugged this tree because the soldiers of a nearby empire called the Jodhpur Empire, and the king was building apparently a big fort or big palace, and he needed all the firewood that he could get to build this huge fort. And he sent his soldiers to get the firewood from, and he knew that if they need the firewood, they will get all the wood from the Bishnoi villagers, because Bishnois are the ones who are taking care of their trees very, very carefully. So as soon as the soldier arrives in this village and he starts cutting the tree, and Amrita Devi runs to the tree and she hugs the tree, and she unfortunately is immediately killed by the soldier's axe. And then 362 more Bishnoi men, women and children, they all sacrificed their lives to save their trees. So that is in 1763. You can imagine long before we ever heard this word environmentalism and biodiversity and love for nature and all of that. Long before that, we literally had this, probably the first tree huggers of the world in a small village in Rajasthan where Bishnoi were living in majority. So that's the first example of Bishnoi sacrifice for their trees. But this is not just one example, not just one stray example. But even in contemporary India, they have fought all kinds of battles to save their trees, to save their blackbucks, their deer, their birds in their villages. And as recent as in 1995 and going up to 2000, for 5-10 years, they have been fighting a legal battle with one of the biggest Bollywood stars, Salman Khan. And once he went to those villages to shoot his film, Salman Khan, and in his leisure time, probably he went out and started killing some deer and blackbucks in the villages of Bishnoi. And Bishnois, as soon as they heard the gunshot, they ran to catch Salman, and they caught him, and they handed him over to the police. And in the long court battle, Bishnois eventually won the court battle, and Salman was put behind in the jail. So again, that's not just one example. There are thousands of more such examples that I've all listed. Not all, but at least dozens and dozens of examples I've listed in my book from my dissertation. So Bishnois are, I think, one of the most powerful, very inspiring example of doing everything for their nature and for their environment, for their ecological resources. Again, not as being environmentalists, but just as living their dharma which was laid down by their founding Guru Jambheshwar, and being environmentalist is just a byproduct of living their dharma, of seeing divinity in all around their villages, their dwellings.
Pankaj, we just had a wonderful quote sent in by one of our participants. It's a quote from Joyce Kilmer, who lived in northern New Jersey in 1913, and the quote was, "I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree." So there's a poetic expression from English language poetry of something that is similar in certain ways to the respect and reverence for trees that you're talking about here. Tell us a little bit about this next movement, which is one that's had substantial impact in India on a range of wider social issues as well as in relationship to the environment.
Right. Yeah. So I mentioned about Sundarlal Bahuguna and Chipko movement, which is pretty widely known all over the world as the environmental movement who took its inspiration from religious teachings of Hinduism and other Indian traditions. But Swadhyaya Parivar, Swadhyaya movement, as in English the word movement has been used, and even I used it, but probably movement does not justify the way the global phenomenon really works as a parivar, as a family. So this Swadhyaya, again, which means study of the self, or self-study parivar, family to study the self. This was not as widely known as the Chipko movement as an environmental movement. Of course, they did get Templeton Prize, the world's biggest religion prize, in '97 for doing innovative things in the field of religion. So I decided to study this phenomenon all over which is spread all over the world in New Jersey and even about 40 states just in this country, and of course in several states in India and also in Canada, in UK, in Trinidad, Suriname, New Zealand, Australia, Bahrain, Singapore, all over the world. They have some presence all over the world. So when I went to the practitioners of Swadhyaya Parivar, I asked them that my focus is ecology and I want to study your activities from the perspective of environmentalism. And immediately they completely rejected my my topic of research, saying that we are not environmentalists, we have nothing to do with the environment. If you take the ecology as your focus, you are going to misrepresent our work. We are not at all concerned about biodiversity and things like that. So then I decided to continue my research, and when I really studied the activities, I found that again, as I mentioned, that what they are doing is just be really respectful and reverential towards all the surroundings, all the natural entities that they have in their villages, in their towns. So the basic principle that they live by is that divinity resides in every particle of the universe, which is again coming from the Upanishadic concept of Ishavasya Idam Sarvam, Sarvasya Chaham Hridaya Sannivishto in Bhagavad Gita and so on, that divinity is not just in heaven, not just in sky, not just in temples or other places of worship, but that divinity is in everybody and everything. So that single concept unites every particle of the universe as a global family. And Swadhyaya just tries to live by that example. So in that perspective, in that spirit, what they did is they took huge parts of the land in their villages, and that land itself, first of all, is divine. So that Bhumi became the Mother Earth and the goddess. And on that land, they created these big gardens of fruits like mangoes and chiku in Indian villages. And those gardens themselves became the temples. And people who go there are not going there as farmers or gardeners, but they go there as priests and devotees. So when they take care of these trees, when they nurture these trees, this is part of their expressing their gratitude towards the divinity residing in the trees. So their guru, Panavishasi Athavleji, Dadaji, the way he explained the concept of divinity in trees to his listeners is simple, that water rises in the trees from bottom to top in opposite direction to gravitation is an expression of divinity also. So it's not just surface tension or not just capillary action which makes water rises from bottom to top, but it is the force of divinity in the trees which makes water rise from bottom to top. So that was so convincing, and the listeners were convinced, and they were more motivated to express their gratitude towards divinity in the trees. So they go there and they take care of these trees, and whatever output comes out of these gardens is collected as a collective wealth, and that whatever wealth is generated from selling of those fruits is also considered divine. So because Mahalakshmi is a goddess of wealth in Hindu tradition, so it's very easy for the practitioners to practice their divinity even towards the wealth and towards the land and towards the trees. So this is just one example of community gardens that is so common these days to talk about community gardens in this part of the world. But this is, I think, another example of community garden, not with the spirit of saving the biodiversity or going local or going organic, but just with the spirit of expressing their gratitude towards the divinity in trees. So that's one example. Second example that Swadhyaya has done is hundreds of thousands of water resources were lying all empty and dry in the state of Gujarat and Maharashtra. And so what they did is because water is a perennial problem in Indian villages, so what they did is they again with the spirit that the land is divine, water is divine as well. So the guiding principle there was that if you quench the thirst of Mother Earth will quench your thirst. So they, as an expression of divinity, again they went and they recharged these hundreds of thousands of water resources and rainwater harvesting that they did for these water resources. That became another big movement. Without calling it movement, it's just as a byproduct, the natural resources were recharged again, and water problem was solved in thousands of villages in Gujarat and Maharashtra, and all these gardens were created, and all these trees were taken care of, and so I think they are right in saying that they are not environmentalists. They have nothing to do with biodiversity, but as a byproduct, all their actions are automatically helping the ecology in the villages and taking care of villages, making them more hygiene because they are more clean now. The villages, health issues are resolved in many of the villages where they are doing all these activities. So as a byproduct, I think they are definitely helping and sustaining their villages in a big way.
And it's a fascinating thing to consider.